6, a local sheriff's deputy fired after reporting his supervisor using excessive force during an arrest to the State Bureau of Investigation.
When you see something like that, you're like, we arrest people for that and we submit felony prosecution packets for this.
Tonight, that deputy is speaking only with WBTV's chief investigative reporter, Nick Oxner.
He is detailing the concerning police brutality he says he witnessed and what happened when he tried to document it. Nick joins us now in the studio.
Nick, first set the scene for us here.
Yeah, Alex, Molly, Tyler Thompson was a deputy with the Lincoln County Sheriff's Office until last week when he was fired 1 day after the sheriff learned he'd called the State Bureau of Investigation about an incident that happened in late May, where Thompson says he watched his sergeant choke a man whose hands were cuffed behind his back.
My supervisor grabs him by the throat to the point to where it's firm enough to where I hear an audible struggle, and I'm like, holy crap.
The man in handcuffs was Barry Green, seen here in this booking photo with visible injuries to his face. He was under arrest for DWI and assault on a government officer.
You saw your sergeant put his hands around the neck of a guy who's got his hands cuffed behind his back.
It was his right hand, and it was enough to where I heard an audible struggle come from the individual that was handcuffed.
Thompson says he had to tackle Green, punch him, and tase him to get him under arrest, all before Sutton showed up. He called medics, and while the deputies were taking Green to get checked out, Thompson wrote in his report from that night that Sutton pushed Green into the ambulance, where he landed face first.
His face is already injured. At this point, he's in handcuffs, he's in our custody. We got to take care of him. He's got to get medical attention. Why are we causing more?
Thompson says after the incident, he watched his body camera to detail everything that happened, both his force and Sutton's. But Sutton, the sergeant in charge of approving Thompson's report, had an issue.
Ultimately, I ended up changing my report.
Because he told you to?
Yes, I felt like it was not going to be approved, and he's the only approving individual.
Thompson's report says he saw Sutton grab Green by the neck, but Thompson originally wrote he saw Sutton grab Green by the throat with a firm grip.
By quote, the personal conversation we had while he was giving me these edits in person was because it sounds better.
Thompson was given a 1-day suspension for what the sheriff's office command staff said was improper use of his taser. Sutton, who choked a man whose hands were cuffed behind his back and later shoved the man face first in an ambulance, was suspended for just 3 days.
We were ordered to leave it behind us. We were ordered to never talk about it again. We were ordered to leave it in the past and not bring it up again.
Sutton continued as Thompson's supervisor, and that's ultimately what this former deputy says prompted him to call the North Carolina State Bureau of Investigation. He thought it would be to get a status update on their review of the incident. But that's not what happened.
Hey, give me the details on this, cop to cop. What's going on with this? Are y'all even looking into this? And he had no idea. He had no idea at all.
We got these emails from the SBI showing Thompson talked with an agent who then relayed the complaint to Lincoln County District Attorney Mike Miller. But the SBI can't investigate without Miller's permission, and Miller hasn't given it. Instead, he called the sheriff to let him know Thompson had filed a report.
You call the State Bureau of Investigation after you learn no one else has.
Yes.
And your supervisors at the Lincoln County Sheriff's Office find out about this.
Yes.
And then you end up fired.
Within 24 hours, I was fired.
Does that feel like a coincidence to you?
It's not a coincidence. It's not.
In an email, Miller, the DA, said he was, quote, doing his best to look into this allegation, but did not explain why he hadn't authorized an SBI investigation.
I took an oath, and the oath isn't to protect bad people in the bad acts they're doing. And it was a situation where I felt like if I didn't do something, he would get away with it. And the only time bad people get away with bad things is when good people decide to stand by and do nothing. And if this is the last thing I ever do in regards to law enforcement, I'm okay with that.
Now, I emailed Sheriff Bill Beam on Friday and again this afternoon seeking comment for this story. So far, I haven't heard anything. Thompson says all 3 deputies on scene that night were wearing body cameras, but North Carolina makes that footage secret unless a judge orders it released. I plan to file a petition in court tomorrow asking the judge to do just that. Alex?
Nick Oxner reporting in studio with us. We know you will follow up. Nick, thanks.